All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, wherever you are in this beautiful world. Welcome to Mindset Monday. I'm your host, Ryan Carthage. We'll be joined shortly by my awesome partner, Mr. Billy Allen. Hope everybody's doing well today. On this beautiful Monday, as always, let's try not to fall distractions, grab a pen and paper, let's take lots of notes, and let's make sure that we participate and engage. And as always, I want to start our day off by taking massive action. That action stands for accepting all possible losses before entering a trade, preparing you for any outcome, setting yourself, body, mind, and spirit, ensuring a balanced approach to trading, trusting education, strategy, trade skills, and intuition. Imagine your trade successfully materializing, obeying your trading strategy, avoiding decisions based on greed or fear, and never looking back or stopping once your trade has commenced. All right. So let's get to it. If everybody can hear me okay, drop me one in the chat and we'll get things rocking. All right, perfect. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. All right. So today, right, we've been talking about um we've been talking about building momentum, right? And building that the removing some of those blockers internally to build the momentum for where we're going, right? Um, right. And so we've been talking about building this momentum, right? And as we're building that momentum, the next phase of that, the next phase of that, which we're going to get into today, is building rapport, right? Is building rapport. Rapport is power. Okay. Rapport is power. Hold on one second. There we go. There we go. Rapport is power. Okay. So just follow me on this, right? Rapport, it's not fluff, it's not being nice. It's the bridge between your intention and someone else's openness. Right? And this is really, really important when it comes to building relationships, be it personal or in business, or even just making connections that allow you to learn and grow and help other people learn and grow. And my mission in life, my purpose, my mission, my cause is to help each person that I come in contact with realize and achieve their best self, whatever that means to them. Right? And in order for me to do that, I have to make sure that I'm building rapport with people, right? And so it's not about just being nice, right? It's a bridge between your intention and someone else's openness, right? And it's how you go from being ignored to being heard, right? From being respected to being trusted, right? From being transactional to being transformational. Okay. And you can't have, oh, let me rephrase that. You can have the best strategy, right? And do anything, but sales strategy, business strategy, whatever strategy you have being your intention, right? You can have the perfect offer in sales, right? You can walk around with more value than $1 billion brand, but if people don't feel connected to you, if they don't feel safe with you, if they don't feel seen by you, then none of it lands, right? The truth is, people like people who are like them, right? If you want to sell, if you want to influence, if you want to collaborate or build something that lasts, you must learn to create instant, authentic connection, right? So I'm gonna tell you a story about a gentleman by the name of Dr. Milton Erickson. Right? Erickson was one of the most powerful hypnotherapists in the world. Right? He didn't just talk people into change. Right? He connected them on a deep. He connected with them on a deep subconscious level. Right? How did he do that? He didn't push. He didn't impress. He matched. Right? He matched their voice, he matched their energy, he matched their rhythm, their breathing, and even the way they moved or sat in their chair, right? He matched them. Before a word of guidance ever came out of his mouth, he made them feel understood. He made them feel understood, right? He created a sense of safety and sameness. And guess what? That's when the breakthrough actually happened, right? Erickson could change someone's life in a single session, not because he had all the answers, but because he created rapport, right? Because once there's rapport, the door opens, change becomes possible, trust becomes immediate, and momentum starts to build, right? So here's what I want to do today, right? I want to walk through the steps in building rapport, right? Rapport isn't just a technique, it's a philosophy, right? It's a way of being that says, I care enough to meet you where you are so I can lead you to something greater, right? Or something different. And by the end of the session, right, we're going to know exactly how to do that in business, in personal relationships, in the way that we show up and serve. Okay. So let's get to it, right? The quality of your life is the quality of your relationships. Let's be honest. The truth, whether you're talking business, love, leadership, or your next big deal, y- if you master rapport, you collapse time, right? You accelerate trust, you build bridges that most people spend years trying to cross. Right? And so I want to break this down into three powerful levels of rapport, right? And we'll get started on the ground floor base level is matching and mirroring, right? And this is where you build behavioral rapport. Now, what does that mean, right? It means you mirror the physical and verbal cues of the person you're connecting with. Let me give you an example, right? If they cross their legs, you cross yours. If they lean back slightly, you match the posture, right? If they talk fast, you speed up, right? If they speak calmly, you slow down, right? If they're formal, you drop the slang, right? If they're casual, you loosen up a little bit, right? You're not mocking them, but you're syncing with them, right? You're signaling to the subconscious, we're the same. You can relax. You're safe here. You can relate to them, is what it says subconsciously, right? But people don't respond to logic first. They respond to energy, they respond to familiarity, right? To feeling seen and heard. Because you hear all the time, right? Especially in relational debates. One party will say, you don't see me or you don't hear me, right? Because that connection, that rapport isn't there. They don't feel. So that's what I say. I don't feel heard. I don't feel seen, right? So you make them feel seen and heard before even words are exchanged. So let's take this a step further, right? When you match someone's tone, pace, and language style, right, you're gaining entry into their internal world. It's like getting a backstage pass to influence, right? Think about someone who you instantly clicked with, right? You felt like you'd known them for forever, even though you just met them. Anybody ever had that moment? I've had it a few times, right? Um, that's rapport. That's mirroring in action, even if it was unconscious, right? Even if it was unconscious. So I want you to take a moment and think about a time when you instantly clicked with someone, right? Maybe it was at an event, a meeting, or even just standing in a line at the grocery store, right? What body language matched between you, right? Was it the way they laughed, right? The speed that they talked, the way that leaned, they leaned in when you did, right? What did that look like? What did it feel like? Right? Write that down in your notes of what that interaction was like that gave you that connection. Because I bet that there was one of those things that matched. You said, there's familiarity here, right? That's proof, right? Rapport isn't magic, it's mechanics. It's emotional pattern recognition, right? We always talk about patterns, 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 patterns. Fast friends, exactly, Joy, right? It's emotional patterns, right? If we can get to the point where we're able to have pattern recognition, right? We're able to then better predict what's going to happen next because patterns are habits repeating themselves, right? And when you apply this intentionally, you gain influence, not through force, but through flow, right? So let's keep building, right? Level one was about matching what they do, body, tone, posture, and pace, right? Number two, right? This isn't about posture, it's about presence, right? Emotional matching. Now, write this down. People don't follow your words, they follow your state. They don't follow your words, they follow your state. Your energy is contagious, right? Your emotion leads the room. We talk about when you walk into a room, you can feel the energy in the room, right? Because people's energy radiates outside of their body. And when that energy is matched, you feel it. You feel when it's not matched also, and you move away from those folks. But the ones that the energy is matched, you move toward those, right? Bef Before you lead, you must meet. And here's where most people kind of mess this up, right? They try to bring someone up emotionally without first meeting them where they are. I want you to be here where I am. No, 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 no. Let me meet you here, right? So if someone is frustrated, overwhelmed, uncertain, you immediately jump in with, come on, just be positive. What happens, right? They immediately shut you down. They hear nothing else that you've said. Why? Because you didn't acknowledge their reality, right? You didn't acknowledge that their perspective is different from yours. Where they are right now, you didn't see that. You didn't hear that. You didn't feel that. So they don't feel heard or seen, right? You just try to fix it instead of feel it, right? Again, back to relationships and in marriages or partnerships, right? A lot of times what you'll hear is men, they come in and they try to fix things, right? They hear their partner, their wife going through something and we immediately want to fix it. We want them to feel better, right? We don't acknowledge where they are. And so they'll say all the time, I don't want you to fix it. My wife says to me all the time, right? I don't want you to fix it, right? I just want you to hear me, right? Because I jumped in and I didn't acknowledge where she was, right? I didn't acknowledge where she was. So it's not about fixing, it's about understanding. It's about understanding and acknowledging where she is, where they are, right? So here's the move, right? Match their emotional state first, then guide them somewhere new, right? Pace and lead. Pace and lead is what my mentor Tony Robbins calls it, right? So let's break this down, right? If they're angry, pace their frustration. Say, I can feel how frustrating this must be for you, right? This makes total sense. But what you have to do is shift your perspective to truly understanding the other person's perspective, or at least attempting to understand the other person's perspective so that you can see the world through their lens and understand that they're not going to think, see, or feel the same way that you do with every situation. And be okay with that. Because once you're okay with that, you can truly feel how they could feel. And it'll make sense to you, and they'll feel that energy, they'll feel that connection, right? Now they'll relax. You see them, you feel them, right? And once you've matched their emotional frequency, now you can talk about and you can lead them through the shift, right? You know what? That tells me you care, right? That you're all in this situation. And that means we can use this, right? We can channel it toward progress. We can use that energy and really find ways to impact the situation that's frustrating at the moment. You can walk them through that process. See how that works? Right? You're not invading their emotion, right? You're helping them use that to transmute or change it. Leadership, connection. That's what that is. And you can use that in any situation, not just in marriages or personal relationships, but even in business, right? In business leadership, as you're building teams, you recognize where someone is, you make that connection with them, and you help them. Then, once you've recognized and feel and understand, now you can help them move through this situation differently, right? Right? Like, have you ever had someone say, I totally get what you're feeling right now? And you instantly felt safe, right? You instantly felt safe because there was a connection, right? Give me 1 second, everybody. My bad. It's summertime and Logan didn't turn off her alarms. Um, but when someone heard you and they felt you, you felt a little more safe, right? That's the power of emotional matching. Because when someone feels like you, when someone feels like you get them or they get you, right? They'll follow you somewhere or you'll follow them somewhere. They get me, they understand. They see my perspective. So if they see my perspective, what I believe then subconsciously is they're going to take me somewhere. They can see how I see the world. So as I'm navigating this thing, they can navigate that with me, right? Rapport at this level isn't about, it's not about tactics, but it's about trust. It's about building emotional bridges that allow influence to flow both ways, not just one, because they can also teach you things along the way, right? So remember, match their emotion, acknowledge it, then lead it somewhere new. Match, acknowledge, lead. Okay. So we've made it through the first two levels, right? We made it through the first two levels, right? Number one is we're matching and mirroring, right? Mirroring the physiology of the person, right? Maybe even the pace of their language, the style of their language, right? Number two is building that rapport through emotional matching, right? Or matching their state, their energy, okay? Number three, and number three might be one of the deepest levels that there is belief in identity matching, right? Right? This is next level leadership, right? It's one thing to it's one thing to match how someone moves, right? And match how they feel. But the most powerful form of rapport is when you can speak to someone's core identity. When you can speak to someone's core identity. Why? Because behavior follows belief. Behavior follows belief. So if someone believes I'm not good at sales, I'm not a leader, people always let me down, no matter what strategy you give them, they're gonna sabotage. They're going to mess it up because that's their belief and that's what their focus is. Because that's what their focus is, they're gonna find ways to do that, right? Because their identity won't let them receive something that doesn't match who they think they are, right? So here's the move. You meet them at their belief level and then speak into a higher identity. Give you an example, right? Let's say someone tells me, Ryan, I don't think I'm cut out for business. Now, instead of me just brushing it off and saying, I hear that, right? Or no, I might say, I hear you. And you know what? A lot of the most successful entrepreneurs started with that exact same belief. I started with that exact same belief, right? They weren't sure they were built for this, but something inside them refused to quit, which is why you're still here. That fire, I already see it in you. Boom. What just happened, right? I acknowledged their current belief. I didn't fight it. I didn't try to avoid it, right? But also gave them a new identity to grow into, right? You're already a builder. You just haven't owned it yet. You're already a leader. You just haven't practiced it consistently, right? You create rapport at the identity level. And that's when people shift forever, right? You understand the belief. And then what's happened, what's happened is is that people then start opening up and they'll start telling you about their past, right? And things that it won't be immediately, but they'll start telling you about the past and things that have happened to them over time, right? And you'll get a better understanding then of how that belief was even created, where it came from. And that gives you a deeper level of connection, a deeper level of trust, and you can start to have a deeper, larger conversation about really shifting those core beliefs. But that's how you get there, right? So grab your pen in your journal and take a moment and answer this question. What's one limiting identity that you've carried, right? And what's a new one that we're installing? Because we all have limiting identities in different spaces, different corners of our lives, right? We're all working through reconditioning ourselves in different areas for different reasons and different things. And so pick one of those that you've carried for a while that you're ready to start reconditioning and changing, right? And write down a new one that you desire to install, right? Example, I'm not consistent. That's the old identity, the old belief. The new one is I'm someone who follows through no matter what, right? Or I hate conflict. New identity, I'm someone who leans into tough conversations with grace and clarity, right? Old belief, I'm bad with money. I'm a powerful steward of my finances, right? What you're doing is you're shifting the focus from where you were to where you desire to be, right? That's how you start to shift your identity. You start to open up opportunity for you to see things that you blocked out before, right? And this is where influence becomes transformational because when you match someone's belief, you elevate them, right? You don't just connect, right? You awaken their potential. You show them who they really are underneath the fear, right? You build rapport. You build rapport that creates lifelong change because you give them a vision of themselves that they didn't see before. That's the level that we can play at now. right? That's the level that we can play at now because we understand the different levels of building a connection, right? Everything we've talked about today, matching, mirroring, emotional connection, belief, alignment, it all leads us to where we're about to land this plane. Rapport isn't just a technique, right? It's it's a transmission, right? It's how you transfer your certainty. It's how you transfer your care. It's how you transfer your belief in someone until they believe in themselves, right? Let's lock this in, right? Let's lock this in. We talked about power phrases, right? Power phrases. So take a deep breath, sit up straight in your chair, stand up if you want to, right? Take a deep breath in. Now repeat after me out loud with energy. I feel it, I move it, I name it, I rewire it, I rise. I'm a master of connection. I'm someone who takes others feel, I'm someone who makes others feel safe, feel seen, feel supported. I'm a leader they've been waiting for. Again, I feel it, I move it, I name it, I rewire it, I rise. I'm a master of connection. I'm someone who makes others feel safe, feel seen, feel supported. I'm the leader that they've been waiting for. Let that sink into your nervous system. Continue to repeat it. Let it sink into your nervous system. Feel how that feels. Feel how that changes the energy inside of you, right? Repeat it this week, right? And let that identity start to take root in your nervous system. Because when you walk into a room with this energy, people will feel it, right? You don't have to say that you're a leader. You embody it. When you walk into the room, you'll walk into that room differently and people will see it and they will feel it. People aren't moved by information. They're moved by energy, they're moved by presence, and by how you make them feel. That's the real power of rapport, right? It's not manipulation, it's alignment. It's truly putting yourself in a space to understand someone at a completely different level. And once we move ourselves out of the way and do that, relationships change. You don't just meet them where they are, right? You guide them to who they're becoming. So here's the action steps for this week, right? Here's your challenge. Pick one person to intentionally build a deep rapport with. It could be a client, it could be a team member, it could be a family member, right? Or even someone you've been avoiding, right? Write their name down in your notebook right now. You know who that is in your mind. They immediately came to you. Go ahead and write their name down in your notebook right now, right? Who will I connect with this week at a deeper level? And how will I do it? Will I match their energy? Will I meet them emotionally? I mean, emotionally, right? Will I speak into their higher identity? Whatever it is, right? Identify how you're going to make them feel heard and seen. Not about you, but about them. Because when people feel seen, they lean in. So this week, don't just talk to people, but connect with them. Because the greatest gift that you can give someone is the feeling that they matter. The greatest gift you can give someone is the feeling that they matter. You don't know how that will change someone's life. So let that be our standard. Let that be our legacy, right? And let's start with one powerful connection this week. That's Mindset Monday, good people. The floor is open. Thoughts, feedback, questions.
What up, though?
What is the deal?
Oh, slow motion. So, my aunt and my husband, I felt like it was a curse. They say I have a habit of connecting with people, or I always find a friend somewhere. I always know somebody where I go. Um, Grocery shopping yesterday. I'm just in my mind waiting on another cashier to open, and I'm putting my stuff up. I heard somebody talk, but I didn't hear them. And then they got louder. They said, I like the color of your hair because she got kind of close in my space. I'm like, hello, because I'm in my head. She said, I like the color of your hair. I said, oh, thanks. She said, how did you get it like that? And I told her the process that I use. And I said, I'm glad that I found it because my husband was teasing me, calling me Meteor Man. If I don't know if anybody seen the movie Meteor Man, where everybody here was honey blind. And the cashier always jokes with me when I'm in there. And I was like, well, no, I had a hot flash, so the process didn't take. He said something about my husband, and we all just laughed and everything. And the minute I walked out of there, I was like, why do that always happens to me? I don't know these people from Adam. And I go in there, a simple compliment turned into a whole laugh session. And maybe it was something that was needed, but I find it funny because no matter where I go, I typically end up in a conversation with somebody who I completely don't know, started by them, but I do engage. And I just find it funny.
Yeah, they feel that from you, Joy. They feel that connection with you. I've told you this before. The energy you bring in the room is different, and people feel that. People feel that, and honestly, people are searching for that. Someone that they feel that they can connect with. And just by giving a compliment, right, you're matching, you're recognizing, you're seeing them where they are. That's what that is.
It's
You're
just
seeing them where they are.
it's funny, and it feel gives me butterflies inside. I guess that's why I feel funny.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. You're a connector. It's awesome. Now you can do that. Now that you're aware of what you're doing, you can be more intentional about it now and do it more. That's awesome.
Yeah, I got to get out the house first.
That's what we need to do then. We need to get you out the house. But that's awesome. That's what it is. You're able to connect with people. Literally, you're doing it unconsciously. But now that you know, you can shift that and be more intentional about it when you do it. And that'll allow you to do it more and have a greater impact on people. Because that's what it's about. It's not about sales and money, and it's about impact. If you can make a great impact or influence on someone, on enough people, everything else that you desire will come. But how can you impact people at the highest level? How can you have the greatest impact on people? That's the real piece of it all. Because once you're able to do that, you build the rapport, you do all of the things to be able to impact people to a point where you're changing their life, you're changing their family's life, you're changing their community's life. And they say, I'm here because Joy showed me this. I'm here because Donette showed me this. I'm here because I had that conversation with Michelle. I'm here because in that conversation with Yasina, she showed me a different perspective of the world that I had never seen before. I'm here because when I sat down with Benny, the conversation changed my life, right? That's the real deal. That's the real deal. So how great of an impact can you have on others? And this is a way to do that. This is an entry into being able to do that. Any other thoughts, questions, feedback?
All right. I'm sitting
Miss
outside in
Donnett.
the grass, getting
Ooh,
my grounding
grounding.
and my
Grounding.
sunshine.
I love it.
Hearing the birds chirp. You can hear them probably.
I hear him in the background. I love it. Love it.
So, I've heard this a different way in terms of learning how to be seductive.
Mm, I like the word choice.
Yeah. And Holton Bugs, he says that all the time that you want to be seductive in leadership. And this was a really good session today. Especially when you talked about your identity. I think that's where, everything really stems from. If you identify with getting better at something and working on that is really impactful. But that energy in just doing things is really key too, having
Absolutely.
that energy, looking the part. Um, but I really love the connecting, building the rapport. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. I like that. I like that word choice, right? Being seductive.
Can I
Yeah.
just take this opportunity? Hello.
Hey, what's up, Miss Michelle?
How are you?
Doing well.
As soon as you started using the words like connector, I just wanted to give a shout out to Darnett. She really is the connector of our accountability group that meets every day. I mean, to the point where it's really not the same if she's not present. And that's one of her superpowers. So I just wanted to give a shout out to her and thank her for what she does for us.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Kudos. Appreciate you doing that,
Thank
Michelle.
you.
Drop some sevens in the chat for
You're welcome.
Donette.
And
That's
thanks for
awesome.
coming off mute and speaking. That's really cool.
That's huge. That's huge. Absolutely. Kudos, Michelle, stepping outside your comfort zone a little bit. I love it. I love it. And kudos, Donette, right? We appreciate you for bringing that together and being that connector for, right? The creating the accountability group, but also connecting those that come into those sessions, right? And being that glue that keeps that portion running. We appreciate you. That's awesome. Thank you, Michelle. Anything else before we wrap it up? No? All right, good people, listen, right? Your goal this week is to pick one person. One person. You already know who it is, right? As soon as I said it, it came to mind. Your goal this week is to pick one person to build a deeper connection with, right? Build that deeper connection. Be intentional about truly putting yourself in a space to understand them and connect with them at a deeper level, right? Do that. And we'll talk about it in the community on how that goes. All right. You all be awesome. That's Mindset Monday. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for this pre-New York session. You all have a phenomenal day. Peace.
Thank you.
You're welcome.